In other news, let's get to some West Virginia. I think a big loss. We've had a lot of losses in the transfer portal. Harry, you missed the Jarrett Deggy celebration show. He's gone. I think the biggest loss so far is a new one. Their assistant tight ends coach, Travis Trickett, is leaving to be offensive coordinator of USF. And as a coach on the field, I don't know how great he was, but I know for a fact he was one of their best recruiters. And he's done a lot of the hardcore recruiting. And I've seen on Twitter when a lot of these recruits commit to West Virginia, they tag him in the post as being thanks to Travis Trickett, thanks to Coach Trickett. So this, I think, is going to have an effect on recruiting, and I hope they don't lose any commits because of it.
Yeah, it's been, so I guess since the last time there's been good and bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Bad news, I mean, I don't know. Good and bad. Daggy's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's going to have to step up immediately.
Yes.
Winston Wright is transferring to Florida State.
That one's tough. That was the worst loss on the field.
He was one of your best receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the most electric.
Yes.
But then we got two of our better defensive players coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's not good. I mean, I think a lot of teams are having problems with this portal stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think West Virginia's transfers are the same as some of these other teams that are. I mean, these guys are like free agents now looking for money. Schools are basically just paying them.
Yeah. Which we talked about very early in our podcast career. We mentioned how Neil and the players getting paid would change things, and we're seeing it now. The transfer portal was going crazy, and it's early. We still got a lot of time left before September, so it could get worse.
I mean, yeah, it could be Oklahoma. Oklahoma lost all their best players.
And that's the thing too. A lot of people have pointed out West Virginia, I think, has lost a lot more than other teams, but a lot of West Virginia's losses have been players that weren't playing. Okay players that are probably getting replaced. And, I think someone showed a number that at least half, maybe more than half, haven't even been picked up by anyone else yet or went anywhere yet. We have lost a lot, but some of the other teams, like you said, Oklahoma's been gutted. Gutted. Yeah. On top of losing their coach. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I just hope Coach Trickett leaving doesn't have an effect on some of these new commits for the 22 class, because I know a lot of them were recruited heavy by him.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, just because you have a recruit commit doesn't mean anything. They could be gone in a year. If they feel like they're being held out, or the team doesn't look any good, or they're not going to get to play as much as they want, these guys could just leave.
Yeah, it sucks, but taking the side of the player, as a player, this is your only shot, right? If you're going to go to the NFL, this is it. You have to get seen. So no one wants to go to a college team and sit on the bench if you think you got any kind of shot in the world. So it's good for them in a way, but as for college football goes, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame them. I mean, if a coach can up and leave at any time, a player probably should have the right to up and leave. It creates other issues. I don't know. I can't tell you whether it's right or wrong. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm still making my determination about everything.
It's going to be different. We might not see, maybe it's good in the long run. We'll get more disparity with teams.
Maybe. I think it's going to affect the bigger schools, because, I mean, you got schools like USC and Texas, and these schools that have big boosters can literally just pay a player to come.
Yeah. And we will see that.
I mean, what was it? I saw something, Eastern Michigan. We're going to give Caleb Williams $1 million just to come there.
Yeah. Imagine.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a player, it's great. And you make the money. I mean, it's good. I'm glad.
It is.
I'm glad that money that they're generating is going towards them instead of all to the universities.
Definitely. The players deserve it. I mean, they deserve to get paid, I think, with so much profit coming in off them. But I think it needs to evolve, and what will happen eventually, and what should is, I think there should be caps on some of this. I think it's going to be too crazy, and you're going to have universities throwing ridiculous amount of money to these kids. I think eventually there'll have to be some system where it's capped or monitored very closely what they're making, what they can make, because if not, it's going to get stupid.
Yeah, I mean, you could have large gaps between the top teams and the teams below.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a player, you're going to go to the school that's going to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're a college player, I mean, $100,000 is $100,000.
Yeah. And, think of some of these players really getting paid. It's going to be nuts. Can you imagine being, 19 getting that money thrown at you?
Yeah, I mean, it won't take that much.
I would have died on High Street, Harry, if I had that kind of money. Life would have went
Yeah. I think it also could create issues within the team. You have one guy that's makes $1 million on your team. The rest of you get nothing but the scholarship. I don't know. We'll see. This is the first year.
Ego's out of control. Egos is going to be a huge part of this, especially when you're young and you're immature and you can't control it. I would imagine that's going to affect things big time. I mean, you already see egos with some of these players. I hate to call any kid under the bus, but Spencer Rattler kind of has a reputation, right, for being kind of a bad teammate and egocentric. Imagine throwing $1 million at that kid where the rest of his team is not making anything or very little.
Well, he did. He was getting paid.
Yeah. He
had a lot of money going into the season, and there were rumors that was causing issues. But
I would imagine it would. It's going to get worse.
Oklahoma had 2 QBs, and now they have none. Both transferred out.
Yeah. So you still feel like Oklahoma's Oklahoma next year?
Yeah, I think they still have. They're in a different level in town. Texas may be interesting.
Yeah,
Texas got that really good QB, the transfer from Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be like the number 1 QB coming in this coming year.
Yeah,
enrolled early, and ended up he knew he wasn't going to play because Ohio State has this other freshman, so he transferred. But he's supposed to be good.
I saw recently too. I can't remember his name. Another highly ranked QB. Someone let me know in the comments if you know who I'm talking about. Just decommitted, and he's got ties. I think he's from West Virginia, so people are like raising an eyebrow there. Could he come to West Virginia? I don't know. We got an opening maybe. Jared Dagey's gone. We got a QB battle going. Garrett Green, Nico Marchiol, Will Crowder, and maybe to be announced. So it should be interesting. Will Crowder, I've heard a lot of good things about him. I've never seen him play or know much about him, but some people are really hyped about him. We've seen what Nico can do. We feel like he's the guy and he's a gamer, but he's a freshman and he's going to have to battle with these guys. Garrett Green probably has the most experience. It's going to be interesting. Or you could bring someone from the outside.
It's wide open.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marchiol's probably the favorite. He hasn't even played yet.
I would think that. I mean, that brings up a point too. Jared Dagey transferring. I mentioned this briefly last show. I wonder if he let the fan base get to him. Did they get in his ear? Because a lot of people were blaming the fans for him leaving. A lot of people were giving the fans shit for that. Or could the coach have went to him and said, "Hey, this is our guy next year. Nico's our guy."
I don't think the coach told him anything, but I think he's aware that there's a competent QB coming.
Yeah.
And he, in his last season of eligibility, could end up sitting on the bench if he played bad. So I think it was a mix of the fans and knowing very well that there's a chance he may not be able to play the whole season. So.
Could be. I mean, the fact that he left definitely tells me there may not have been conversation that, hey, you're not the guy moving forward, but there's definitely conversation that, hey, it's not your job cemented in stone.
I mean, they could have told him, I mean, it's wide open.
Yeah.
He didn't like that.
Definitely some kind of conversation had to happen. Unless Jared Dagey's just extremely more aware than we all think. And he's like, well, I'm not beating this guy next year. So I'm out of here. But who knows?
I think you got another issue. I don't know how big of a problem, and I don't know how much more we're going to see it, but I've seen it, the last 2 years is you get a young player that plays really well, really good, feels that they're better than WVU and can play for a better team, and they leave. You had Tyke Smith, he left and went to Georgia. Now you're seeing Winston Wright. Florida State really didn't have a great year, but it's a bigger school.
Bigger platform.
So, I don't know. I mean,
well, that's another thing with the transfer portal going forward. Teams, these mid-tier teams like WVU who are they're not bad. They're not great. They're right there in the I would say upper middle of teams. Is this a tryout for some of the bigger teams? These kids that come in that weren't good enough, you go to a team like WVU, you put a year or two of tryouts, and then you transfer when you get the resume, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a problem going forward.
That is an issue that could create more of a gap between the bigger schools and the lesser schools.
These mid-tier schools basically become development camps for these players that were kind of not big enough to make it. You're dead on there. That's 100% could be an issue that we've seen already.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what college football is like in 5 years.
Nico, please don't leave us. Don't come have a great freshman year and then bounce.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, you could see. I hope not.
One thing I've really liked so far, and this could change, like you said, these players put on a good show in their freshman, sophomore year, and then Ohio State comes calling, or Alabama comes calling, or someone else. It could change, but one thing I really like about this 22 class, the way they talk on Twitter, they seem very committed to WVU, and they're talking about how they're going to be the team to bring WVU a national championship.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is you have to win.
Yeah.
We have to start winning. We can't be 6-6. Otherwise, these guys are going to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing is they won't leave if the team's going 10-2, 9-3, and competing for a conference championship or more.
Yeah.
But if the team's barely making a bowl and these guys are good, they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's what we've seen the last 2 years.
Which a lot of that's on Neil Brown. I mean, you look at teams like Clemson that turned it around. You have to turn it around at some point, and you're not going to get the recruits until you do.
You got to win to keep these players.
Yep.